Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Ronnie Bernick here with podcast number 3. Super excited about this guest. Actually, just had a birthday yesterday. Big number 24. Younger brother Nick Bernick, our camp director. He's doing a lot of stuff for Hot Corner right now, since we're unable to do a lot of the camps that we wanted to kind of set up and get going. But with the quarantine and everything like that, roles have kind of changed. So first off, I just want to thank you for obviously jumping on a call today. You living in Pittsburgh, me being here. But I definitely want to talk a little bit about hitting today. Hitting's a huge deal. I know that we do a lot of it. You and I obviously grew up together, talking hitting, going to the cages all the time, and getting our work in, things like that. Then I do want to get into some of the online stuff that we're doing, some of the camp stuff, and going into a lot of the things that you have done, not only for Hot Corner, but the Dugout Coalition and kind of what's coming from that. So to get right into it, first off, just talk a little about yourself. Obviously, where you came from, high school, college, things like that. What's your background? Why do you enjoy hitting? Why are you still in the game of baseball? Things like that. Go ahead.
All right. Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
All right. So, like you said, I'm your younger brother, right? We grew up together. So, went to Baldwin High School, played there on varsity for 4 years. Ended up having the opportunity to go to Niagara University. It's obviously a small school up in Buffalo, New York. And went there, played for 4 years. Was more of a defensive guy, and I think that's kind of where my love for hitting actually started because it's what I had to work on more, right? So I was known to play defense. I was good at it all throughout high school, and I really had to work on hitting. So it was just kind of a different side of the game that I really had to dive into to learn how to do it and be good at it, right? And then after I graduated from college, I ended up coming to Hot Corner. I was an instructor there, and at small facilities like the one you have, especially in a place like Buffalo where it's colder, the main focus is hitting, right? So kids of all ages, right? Their parents want them to come in, and what do they want to work on? They want to work on hitting. So for me, it was one of those things where if I wanted to be a good instructor, I had to learn how to do it myself first, right? And I got that background from playing in college. But then I had to continuously research because, as we know, the game continues to grow and develop and change, right? And hitting philosophies change every, let's say every decade or so. So, as a younger generation comes into the major leagues, the hitting philosophy changes. As there's new technology, the hitting philosophy changes. So with us, it's something that we have to continue to, research and grow on because if we get stuck behind, right, a new wave is going to come in, teach a new wave of training, right, and we're going to be left in the dust. So that's kind of a little bit of my background, a little bit where I come from, and why I like hitting what we do.
Yeah, same thing with me. I mean, obviously, like I've said it in the baseball school, and I've said it multiple times, especially on the podcast. Like I was never batted one, and never batted two, never
Right,
batted three. I had to learn how to hit and what hitting was, and how to teach it. Because I had to teach
right.
myself realistically, right? So the first question I do have is what's the difference between hitting mechanics and hitting in a game? So like a lot of the stuff that, I mean, when you were here and you were working in Buffalo
Mm,
facility, a lot of it was hitting mechanics. How are we
right.
going to develop our hitters to get better? But what's the difference?
Mm,
What do we have to change between our hitters to understand? Hitting mechanics are one thing, but that
sure.
doesn't mean that you're going to hit in a game. So what's the difference between the two? When do you do them? How do you do them? Things like that.
Right. So, I mean, first, kind of piggybacking off what you said is, in high school, when you're a good player, you're going to hit early in the order. You're going to hit 1 through 5, right? You're going to be either a fast guy, hits for contact. You're going to be a power guy in the middle order. When you go to college, every single kid was that 1, 2, 3, 4 guy, right? Everyone. Okay. Some obviously are going to be a little bit bigger and stronger, so they're going to hit more in the middle order. Some guys are going to be smaller and faster, right? And then there's going to be some guys who are in there to do a specific job, right? I know you hit 9, so did I, right? We're in there to do our job, right? So if I go up to the plate and I try and hit home runs, that's not what I'm there for, right? So I kind of have to adapt my game. Okay, so leading in, we'll get back to more of the approach stuff later, but leading into mechanics, right? You want to do your mechanics and you want to do your, all the fine tuning stuff in practice, right? When you're in cages, when it's really not that serious of a situation, right? You have time to work. There's no pressure, right? You can use a tee, you can use a front toss, things like that, because it's a controlled environment, right? You can control everything that's going on. Okay, so we want to work on our mechanics when we're in the cage, when we have that time with somebody who understands them, because that's where you're going to learn what's the proper way to move my body? How do I get my bat from point A to point B as fast as I can? How do I match the plane of the pitch? Things like that, right? So your mechanics are going to be done in a controlled setting, usually in a cage or on a field, when you have a lot of time to really work and dive into things. Now, when we talk about moving into hitting in a game, it completely changes, right? Something that I heard a lot through college and it really helped me out was you can't think and hit at the same time, right? When you go through mechanics, you're thinking about everything. Where are my hands? Where's my foot? How's my load, right? If you're thinking about that and a pitch is coming at you at 90 miles an hour, how are you going to hit it, right? You don't have that much time to think and react, okay? There's no way to do that. So in a game, your swing is what it is, right? You might not feel great that day, okay? That's fine. It's just one day. Right. But your swing's going to be what it is. So now it's time to compete, right? We're here to figure out a way to put the bat on the ball, right? Put myself in the best position to get on base and help my team, okay? So when you're in practice and you're thinking about your mechanics, it's a lot about what am I personally going to do to better my swing, right? What do I need to work on? Am I getting underneath the ball? Am I pulling my shoulder? Am I late? Am I early? Things like that. You can work on that because you're able to take rep after rep after rep when you're in the cage. In a game, you have an at bat, right? You get 3 strikes, you're out. So mechanics go out the window. Because if you watch even Major League Baseball, there's a lot of times in an 0-2 count, guy gets fooled on an off-speed pitch, right? Sticks their butt out, flicks their hands, hits a single. Are you going to be mad about that? Well, no. Why would you be, right? He made a good pitch. You adjusted. You didn't take a great swing, right? But you put the bat on the ball, put the ball in play. Something good happened.
Right. And so going off of that, like the one thing that I hear a lot, like whether it's parents or coaches or, they always talk in the game like, oh, so some dude just smokes a foul ball down the third baseline. He's a right-handed hitter. And coach is like, oh, you would have hit that in the gap if you wouldn't have pulled your shoulder. And they say that from the third base coach's box. Like we're in a competition right now. You know what I mean? Right. Like, let's fine tune my mechanics whenever I'm inside of a cage, and we've got time to actually break the stuff down. But in a 1-1 count, I don't need to be thinking about pulling my front shoulder. What I need to be thinking about is, am I going to time this fastball up and hit an absolute seed somewhere and be successful? And I think a lot of times what happens is a lot of coaches and parents will talk their kids out of success by talking about things that they can't control in a game. And this was said by Jake from BamFam yesterday in baseball school, and I loved it. And he was like, when you show up to the field that day, your swing is your swing. You're not going to be able to do things that you couldn't do the day before. It's just not going to happen. There's a time and a place to work on those things, right? And so the one thing that I liked that you said was, the breakdown of the mechanics happens in a controlled setting. It happens when we are in a cage, and it happens whenever we have people that are able to talk to us through our swing. And it happens when we have an actual legitimate plan in place on things that we struggled with, whether it was at the last practice, whether it was in the last tournament, whether it was in the last game, whatever it is, we're able to work on that in a controlled setting. But I think we're taking the competition away from kids all the time because they get into a game and they fly out to the shortstop and immediately somebody says, oh, come on, man, stop dropping your shoulder. No, dude, I just got under it. That's part of the game. Like, remember that we're going to fail 70% of the time and we're still going to be studs. And so we have to be in competition mode. We have to be in help the team mode. That's what hitting in a game is like. Okay, guy on second base with no outs. I don't care if I get a hit right here. I'm hitting something to the opposite field as a right-handed hitter. And if I ground out to second base, I better get 12 handshakes from my teammates when I get back to the dugout because I just did my job, right? That has and for a lot of the people that are listening in on this, what I and viewing it, what I want you guys to understand, college coaches do not care about your high school batting average. And I remember this because when I was at Canisius and you were getting ready to go to NU, like I remember your recruiting day and you were there and like not a big dude, right? But like you competed in 3 straight at bats. And it was like single up the middle, single up the middle, single up the middle, right? And then you're at the Canisius camp and it was like single to right. You know what I'm saying? And it was like just compete. And the reason why a lot of schools like guys, like especially for me being a 9-hitter, like why did I play? And I didn't play because I was the best hitter. I mean, think about it. I mean, and I'll throw some names like Connor Panis drafted in the 9th round by the Blue Jays, Brett Siddle 13th round by the Oakland Athletics. We had dudes, man. But like I was in the lineup because I competed. And for you, like, you got in the lineup to compete defensively. Like, you understood what your role was, but it was competition. I mean, obviously people have swing flaws. Look at Giancarlo Stanton. Nobody in the world is going to say his swing is perfect, but I'm going to guarantee you that dude's competitive drive is elite, right? So what makes him still stick in the major leagues and become such a highly paid guy is that he competes and he makes it work for what he has. And I guarantee his swing work in the cage is always working on something to get better. But that's a big thing to take away from this is mechanics or cage work. Hitting in a game has to be competition. We need to separate that, right? Coaches, players, parents, separate the mechanics. I want no thinking about dropping the shoulder, pulling the front side. Did I drive my hips? Who cares? Did you hit a seed? Did you help your team? That's it. Hit the baseball hard. Getting to
Well, real quick before you jump into something else, just something I want to touch on is I think you might have even said this, and this is where I caught it from. The way we have to look at hitting and hitting mechanics and hitting in the game is hitting mechanics. It's like studying, right? If we want to relate this to school, right? That's all your work before the actual big day, the test, right? Hitting a game is the test. Okay. So if you think about it like you're in school, you study, right? What happens on test day? You don't have that material anymore, right? You can't go back. You can't take hours and hours to review it and look over it, right? You have what you have. You're in there to test your knowledge, right? To test your skills. Okay. So when you hit in a game, you have to forget about all that. You can't go back to the drawing board in step one and review your flashcards and your note cards on, X, Y, and Z of my mechanics. You can't do that, right? It's the test time. It's time to compete. You're bringing what you've worked on and what you've studied and all the practice you've put in against the pitcher who's done the same thing. He's put in his work, right? So it's what he's got that day against what you have that day. That's it, right? Maybe you don't have it that day. Maybe you do, right? But then you use that as information, just like as a test, right? Why do we take tests? To grade the knowledge of the students, right? What areas did they excel in? What areas didn't they, right? When you're hitting in a game, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? Then you take that to practice and you study and you work on it, right? So that's just an easy analogy to look at hitting mechanics versus hitting in a game is mechanics are studying, right? Hitting in the game is a test. You have what you have. And then one other thing, I know you're talking a little bit about recruiting, right? And a great example, like you said, I went to the Niagara and Canisius showcases. Niagara showcase was great for me. 3-line jobs with the middle, right? Anyone's happy with that. Canisius was funny because still had a pretty good day. I think I went 1 for 3, right? But what ended up happening, what resonated with me is that I hit a line drive to right field, right? And for you guys that don't know Canisius's field, it's an M shape. The outfield walls come into an M at center field. So kids are playing very shallow, right? The right field guy isn't playing 300 feet back because it's not that far. So I hit a one hopper to the right fielder, right? I'm halfway down the line when he catches the ball. So what do you think he does? Fires it to first base. Luckily, he made a bad throw. I'm safe at first, right? There's a single. Next at bat, I hit a one hopper right to the second baseman, get thrown out by 50 feet. So after the showcase happens, I get to talk to head coach Mike McRae, and he says, listen, I don't care if that kid throws you out from right, and here's why. What was your count? It was 1-2. What was the pitch? Fastball away. What did you do with it? You hit a hard line drive to right field, right? So within your situation and with your pitch, you did all you could. After it left your bat, guess what? It was out of your control. There was absolutely nothing you can do about it, right? Now in 3 years when you're bigger and stronger, instead of hitting a line drive to the right fielder, maybe you hit it over his head. We're not worried about that, right? You got a pitch in a certain situation, and you did all you could with it, right? And that's what they're looking for. Did you put good bat on the ball within your situation, within your circumstances? And that's it, right? If I get thrown out or if I don't get thrown out, if it's a single or if it's an out, right, they don't care. It doesn't matter. But was it a quality at bat, right? That's what they look forward to. Okay, so I know you did this in college and so did we. We didn't chart batting average. We charted quality at bats, right? You were based off of your quality at bat percentage. Whoever had higher quality at bat percentages throughout the week played. Whoever didn't. Didn't matter if you were 10 for 10 with 10 jam shots, you're not going to play. They're not quality at bats, right? If you're 0 for 10 with 10 lineouts to center field, you're going to play.
And understand the long game.
That's just the nature of it.
Right, and understand the long game too.
Right.
When we're talking about short term, like, yeah, you know what? Like, dude, listen, if I get jammed and I get a single, like that's great in short term. I got beat and I got lucky.
Mhm.
But the long game doesn't happen like that. And I'm going to bring up an example before we get into the other things. But I'm going to bring up an example of Brett Siddle, who drafted in the 13th round by Oakland Athletics. His dad played in the major leagues. Brett was an all-star in high A. Like the dude had a really good career. Like I remember his freshman year, dude. Like it was like ground ball single, ground ball single, ground ball single. And I'm like, dude, like he's hitting the ball hard. But it seemed like that year it was like a little bit of luck, but you're like he's still batting 320, like the dude's raking. But it was just like hard hit ball after hard hit ball, right? And then the following year, those hard hit ground ball singles turned into doubles, right? And then when he got to pro ball, those hard hit doubles turned into bombs. And over time, what happened with him was that he became like he always hit the baseball hard, so he always got quote unquote lucky. But
Right.
realistically, like he always had quality at bats. And I remember looking at it like, man, like this dude just keeps getting hits. Right. But for me, like at the time when I was the same age, like around there, like, dude, if I didn't hit a line drive, I didn't get a hit. And the reason why was because I wasn't hitting the ball that hard. My quality at bat percentages were not very high, and that's why I sat. But when I realized, like, if I just hit a rocket ground ball, it's a quality at bat. Even if I don't get a hit, I'm still playing. And the more opportunities that you have, the more success you're going to have, right? So realistically, it's just stringing together as many good at bats as I could, which ultimately that brings up a good example for that. So that's how you hit in a game: compete and hit the baseball hard. Um, Getting into the next thing, cage swingers versus game hitters. Like, how many times do you look on Instagram and you just watch these dudes just like literally just throw their barrel straight up in the air and they're hitting like 400-foot bombs on a juiced hit tracks, and like then they get out and do a game and I mean I know batting average doesn't matter, but you get out and do a game and you're looking and they're like hitting a buck 50 and you're like, dude, like you're hitting the ball 450 feet in the cage. What's the difference? What changes cage swingers versus game hitters? I know hitting mechanics and hitting in a game is similar, but like there's definitely a huge difference between cage swingers and game hitters. I have something to add into it, but I want to hear your input first. Like, what is the difference? How do we figure out like when to let a hitter go in the cage and when to be like, dude, dial it back. We need to get ready to hit a game, right? What's the difference between the two?
Yeah, so there's a lot to go into this, but I'll try and keep on the same path. So these cage swingers, those are your 5 o'clock guys, right? I'm sure a lot of people have heard that before. They're the guys that show up for BP, they'll put on a show, and then they're going to be hitting a buck 30 in the games with 150 strikeouts, 2 home runs, right? So obviously going into a game, especially the higher levels that you get to, you're going to have an idea of who you're facing, what their tendencies are, right? So, hard righty, works arm side a lot, right? So he's going to work into righties, away to lefties. So having that understanding going into BP, you know what you're going to face. You're facing hard in for a righty, hard away for a lefty, right? So that day you might want to focus more on hit the pitches inside well for a righty, hit the pitches away for a lefty well, right? Maybe, guy from the left side, soft lefty. He's going to be working away from righties, away from righties, away from righties, soft into lefties, change ups that dive off the plate, right? So I think knowing what you're up against is going to help you understand what you're supposed to do in practice, so it translates to the game, right? What do you want to do in batting practice to get yourself ready for the game? Why the reason why we have cage swingers versus game hitters is because BP it's not that hard, right? For if you're playing at a high level, it's easy to hit, right? Everybody wants to hit the fastball. So how do you challenge yourself to? I don't want to say make that pitch more challenging, but how do you challenge yourself to get benefit from that fastball coming at the same speed in the same location, right? It's changing your mindset, changing your approach. What do I want to do this round that's going to get me ready for scenarios I might face in the game, right? So if you're a power guy, right? If you're a 3, 4, 5 hitter, if you're going to get a fastball middle away, and let's say that's your power zone, what are you going to try and do? You're going to try and drive that ball into the gap and out of the park, right? If you're, let's say a 1 guy or you're a bottom of the order guy, chances are there might be guys on base, right? Might be a guy on first, you might have to bunt. Might be a guy on second, no outs, you might have to move him over. So for me as a right-handed hitter, my middle away fastball, I'm shooting a line drive to right field, right? That's my goal. Okay. So if I wanted to go and I wanted to try and pull that fastball in the gap, could I? Sure. but is that my job in the game? No. Right? So the way to translate, what you're doing in the cage to in the game is having that approach beforehand, right? And the guys who can stick to that approach in batting practice day in and day out are the ones who have more success in the games. The guys who are just free swingers in BP because it's fun and you look good and you can hit the ball far in batting practice, you usually don't translate in the game because you don't get that fastball groove right down the middle, right? Because those fastballs down the middle, guess what? They're mistakes. They don't happen often, right? So when you get them, sure, you want to crush them. But there's a chance you don't see a fastball down the middle for 3-4 straight weekends, right? So what? You're just not going to hit for those couple weekends? No, right? So you have to challenge yourself to have an approach in batting practice that's going to translate to your approach in the game.
Right. And so this is what I wrote down. Hopefully you can see it. Can you see it? Purpose in practice.
Purpose in practice. Yep.
Bingo, dude. Like that's got to be like number one. It's so funny because whenever I was in college, man, like I vividly remember, I could pretty much tell you every single pitch that I was going to get in a weekend. Like I can tell you straight up. Like I'm telling you right now, it's two seams and sinkers away and it's changeups away. And if sometimes they're going to absolutely pound fastball in on me because I stood on top of the plate. So like if my preparation in practice is, hey coach, throw me middle in so I can get absolutely loose on an inside fastball, I'm going to bat like 0-50. Like I'm going to literally bat terribly. But if you look at the way, and I didn't understand it my first couple years playing, but we did a chart and I'll never forget it. And I remember McRae said every single pitch, okay, 90% of pitches, we took all the pitches for one full season. 90% of the pitches that we got were fastballs away or off speed. He's like, so I would love for you guys to get in the batter's box and just tee off on fastballs in, but like you're not getting them.
Right.
So why would we spend a lot of our time focusing in practice on inside fastballs when you're getting fastballs middle away? So just get good at hitting those. And so for me, like I didn't really like hitting breaking balls and changeups. So my approach was easy. I'm going to look fastball middle away, and I'm just going to hit a line drive to left field and get on base. And if you try to pound me in, I'm probably going to get hit by it. I'll go to first base and take my base because I understood what my role was. But cage swingers versus game hitters, I'm not going to wow you in a cage. I'm not going to. Right. Because I'm going to take 4 of my rounds are going to be hitting the ball away, maybe a move 'em round I pull. But like for the most part, I'm going to go away, just line drives to left field, work my rounds, maybe do a gap to gap at the end. But then when I get into a game, I'm productive. Why am I one of the 9 guys on the field? Because all I'm trying to do is hit line drives, right? Now, if I flip it and my preparation is crank baseballs in practice, then what happens when I get to the game is I never get the pitch that I've been practicing, so I don't know how to hit it, right? And so the one thing that I vividly remember this, when I would come home from college and you were in high school still, I remember you going through all the drills that we were doing at Canisius, and I could see like your swing was just consistently getting better and consistently getting better. And then I came to watch you play in the Whitfield Championship, and was it Colin Coward? Connor Coward? He played Virginia Tech, right?
Right.
Like the dude got drafted in the 7th round. And I'm watching you hit, and at the time, it's funny because you're 5'7", 130 pounds, and it's like line drive up the middle. Next at bat, line drive up the middle. And it's like, dude, like he's supposed to be dominating your team. Why are you able to hit him? And the difference was because your preparation in the cage as a 5'7" at the time, 130-pound dude was just be good at what I'm good at. And it was hitting a line drive up the middle. And then you go to the NU camp, and it's line drive up the middle. And I remember watching. And that's the one thing that I always remembered seeing was if you just stayed within yourself, no matter who you were as a hitter, that you would be very good. And the one thing that I want to tell parents is, hey, parents, I know you want your kid to hit 15 home runs a year. I get it. I understand that. I wanted to be that guy too. But guess what? I'm 5'9", 185 pounds, and I hit line drives. And I was molded into that type of player, and that's what worked for me. And so if you want your kid to be a home run hitter, like you really have to do a lot of self-assessing to figure out who they are, right? And then your preparation in the cage has to be strictly on what they're good at and what you think that they can do to help their team, right? So if your dude's like 6'5", 240, like, okay, there's a good chance that if he has a pretty quick swing that he's going to hit some bombs. So in the cage, mix in some 203-1 where he's getting fastballs and he can tee off. But if your dude at the time is 15 years old and he's 5'4", like let's focus on hitting line drives, and then just go based on his development. right? Instead of trying to make somebody something that they're not. And so I think hitting is a lot of self-assessing, right? What does the team need? Where am I at in my development? And the person that I'm working with, let's say it's a coach or let's say it's a private trainer like myself or somebody else, what are they saying about who I am? And am I asking the right questions? You know, like when somebody comes to me and says, hey, how does my swing look? Well, it looks really good. It looks really, really good for you. And that's all that matters. But like talking to Aaron Judge, it's probably not nearly where it needs to be. But I think for you right now, you look very good. And I think that if you stay on this process, so you're going to be a pretty good player. So I just wanted to go into cage swingers and game hitters. I want to talk a little bit about our hitting philosophy. So instead of just talking generically about it, I want to go into our hitting philosophy a little bit and talk about what we are about, what we do, what is the hot corner hitting philosophy. You know it just as well as anybody else. You know, what is it? What's our goal? And when we have Matt Cross, Charlie Mack, Julian Gallup, you, Jesse Pushek, me, anybody that works in here, like, what do we talk about with all of our hitters, and how has that kind of camaraderie been very good for us?
Right. So this is where, I really enjoy talking about hitting because our philosophy isn't very complicated, right? But it pertains to everybody, which is great, which is, I think, because everybody's going to have a different swing, right? No two swings are exactly the same. You know, maybe at certain points you want people to get to, certain spots, but first things first is you have to be athletic in the box. Get into a good athletic base starting position, right? We want to be able to teach players about sequencing, right? Because it's very important, making sure your hips lead your swing, right? Hips and hands, we hear it all the time. But it's super important, especially at a younger age. A lot of kids don't understand that. A lot of kids don't understand, well, how do my feet and my hips guide my bat to the baseball that's in my hands, right? A lot of kids don't understand that. So working through that process is something that's very important. And then matching the plane of the pitch, right? We want somebody who's athletic, who understands the sequencing of their swing and can match the plane of the pitch. Because ideally, right, if the ball's coming down at a certain angle, your bat's going up on that same plane, you have a better chance of hitting it, right? So those are just kind of simple points that we talk about. But notice we didn't say you have to start with your hands in this position, right? We didn't say that you have to take this exact stride, right? We didn't say anything about that because it's different for everybody. Now, again, do people have to, when your front foot gets down, your hands have to be back? Sure, right? But how you get there, it's different for everybody. Okay, so we kind of leave certain things open so the players can find what works for them. Because even you and I, right? You worked with me day in and day out on my swing, but how I got my foot down and my hands back was completely different on how you did it, right? But everything in between was the same. Did you get on time? Yes. Did you match the plane of the pitch? Yes. Right? So it doesn't matter how you get to these certain points. As long as you're doing that, you're going to be a successful hitter.
Right. And like, that's what's so, like, when we thought about this whole philosophy on hitting, like, I remember because over time, like when I got out of baseball and I started coaching and then I got into doing this, like, I remember evolving as a coach. I remember initially, like, I'm not even like, I was taught literally go down to the baseball, go down to the baseball, go down to the baseball. And then I'm watching, and I will say this, the person that helped me change the way that I teach baseball and teach hitting was working with Charlie Mack a couple years ago. And Charlie, for those of you who don't know him, Charlie Mack is one of the highest drafted players ever in Buffalo, drafted out of high school in the 6th round by the Minnesota Twins. I mean, this dude did pretty much everything you could do in a high school circuit. Perfect game, All-American stuff. He did East Coast Pro. He did area code. He did the rivalry game. Like, all that stuff, he did everything. And when I talked to Charlie after his first year of professional baseball, he said, listen, man, like, at the end of the day, the baseball's coming in on a plane, right? So let's forget about mechanics for a second. If the baseball's coming in down this way, I need to match that going at the same plane that it's coming in, and I'm going to be able to hit everything, right? What makes pitchers good is that they can hit a couple different planes at one time. That's what makes them good, but we can't control that. All we can do is control the general planes that we're going to see. For instance, a fastball is going to come on a downhill plane. I'm not saying swing up. I'm saying match the baseball. Get on path of the baseball and extend through that path, and then you're probably going to hit a line drive somewhere, right? It makes it really tough if the guy's 6'10" and he throws straight downhill. But guess what? Like, we're not seeing that every day. So you adapt and adjust that specific day for who you're seeing, right? So our hitting philosophy is simple. Be an athlete, right? Be as athletic as you possibly can. And I use other sports all the time because I learned a lot about being athletic from playing basketball. You know, like how do I play defensive basketball? I have to be able to move left, right, up, down. I got to be able to move. And so when I hit, I want to feel the same whenever I do that. If I don't feel athletic in my swing and I feel robotic, I'm not going to be able to adapt in a game. I better hope that the pitch is in one spot, one location, at one speed for me to be successful. But if you're an athlete and you learn how to get to athletic positions, then you hit. The second thing, sequencing. Like, this seems like a big word, but it's pretty simple, right? Front foot down with the hands back, that's a non-negotiable in hitting, right? Look at any hitter, look at any hitting coach. Anybody who has any idea what they're talking about is going to say front foot down with the hands back, right? And then we're going to allow the hips to lead everything. Once the hips work, yes. Is there spine things that you can talk about? Are there match the plane stuff and body positioning and staying over the plate and things that we can get into? Sure. But let's make this easy. When your front foot down, your hands are back, your hips are going to lead everything. And if you do that and you do that on time, you're going to be successful at the plate, right? And that's going to help you a lot. And then the last thing is let your eyes match the baseball. Eyes, the eyeballs, hand-eye coordination. Like, I think we overlook the eyes a lot. And I said this the other day in baseball school, and I'll say it again, is when we're working with hitters, it doesn't always mean that their swing is wrong if they miss-hit a ball. I think a lot of people get caught up in, oh, I rolled over to the shortstop. I have something wrong with my swing. I need to fix that. Right? No. Realistically, what it is, okay, what part of the baseball did you hit? Your eyes took you to the outside of the baseball. All right, so on this pitch, stay inside of it better. Right? Or, hey, you keep hitting fly balls. You're probably hitting the bottom of the baseball a little bit. I'm not saying hit the top of the baseball, but hit higher on the baseball. Find a cue, find a visual that works for you, and that's going to help you hit more line drives. I think philosophy-wise, let's simplify this whole thing. All the coaches, players, parents out there, simplify your son and daughter's hitting philosophy. Don't make it complicated for them, because once you confuse them, and I've done this wrong in the past, where I've over-explained things, and I've learned from that, and once you simplify everything for them, the strides are dude, they fly through the roof on their strides. And the changes and the adjustments are consistent, right? So that's a big thing for hitting philosophy. Like, do you have anything else hitting wise that you want to go after before we hit on anything else? Like, I think that we really covered everything, but we're trying to make really good game hitters in the cage, working on purpose and having a good philosophy and good action plans, right? What other stuff you got on the hitting front?
Yeah, so a few things. Just going back to the first point, hitting mechanics versus hitting in a game, right? Like we said, you're competing in a game, okay? So really, it doesn't matter how good or bad your swing looks. The whole point is to put the barrel on the baseball, right? Barrel up the ball, hit it hard somewhere. Now, if you have really, really fine-tuned mechanics, that single over the shortstop's head might be a double in the gap. That double off the wall might be a home run. That's the difference of having good mechanics versus bad mechanics, right? But you don't need great mechanics to be a great in-game hitter. The mechanics are just going to excel your game a little bit more, right? So that's just something that a lot of people need to understand is you can't go into a game solely focused on mechanics. You're not going to do well, right? We have to focus on competing at the plate, putting the bat on the baseball, finding barrels. You know, talking to Charlie Mack, like you said, he's a big influence. What do they care about in pro baseball? Did you barrel up the base? Did you barrel up the ball? Did you barrel it? Did you find the barrel? If you find barrels, good things are going to happen. Right? Now, those guys are working baseball day in and day out. Are their swings going to be really, really good? Sure. Right? So they don't have to worry about that going into the game. And that's why it's really, really important to make sure we take time every single day or every other day or as much as we can to fine-tune our swings so we don't have to worry about our mechanics in the game. The way I think about it is if you're focused on your mechanics in the game, you don't have trust in the work that you've done before the game, right, where you can just go out there and lay it all on the line. Right? That means you're not putting in the work day in and day out where you can trust the process that you have. Right? So,
Amazing.
Yeah, right. So if you put in the work beforehand, you don't have to worry about it when you get into the game. And I think that's something very, very important is everyone wants these great mechanics, but they don't want to put the time in. You know, you hear this about anything. To master any topic, it takes hundreds and thousands of swings. It takes, tens of hundreds of hours, right? It takes time to be a master at anything you do. So same thing with hitting. It's very challenging, right? To have a good swing and to hit a ball moving in the air, it's hard. So what do you have to do? Practice it. And that's why you see every level you jump up, guys get drastically better. But if you look at why, look at how much they work at their craft, right? When you're playing travel ball and you're in middle school and you're younger, it's a hobby, right? It's not your life yet. You know, you're gonna go to your practices maybe once or twice a week. You might play wiffle ball in the backyard once, right? So let's say 3 days a week you're practicing baseball or softball, right? You get into high school. Okay, in the off season, you're probably playing other sports, which I think is great. I think playing multiple sports is super important. But you're playing other sports, so you're not focused on baseball or softball that much. You might pick up a bat once or twice a week. Then you get into season, 5 days a week, right before the season starts, and then the season rolls around. You're practicing every other day. You're playing every other day. So let's say 5 days a week. Now you get into college, right? Mandatory 6 practices a week, right, or games. Okay, plus you're expected to do extra work, right? It's not mandatory, but guess what? If you're not doing it, you're falling behind. So now let's say you take a day off. So now you have 6 days, 6 days a week. That includes a practice, right? A team practice and an individual practice. Okay. Then you get to the pro level, right? These guys, their entire day is based around baseball, right? From 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. Team lift, right? Then we have breakfast. Then we have strength and then we have swing prep, then we have BP, right? Then we have lunch, fielding, etc., etc. So these guys are just working at their craft a lot more than, everybody else. So over time, right, the time they're putting in is compounding. That's why they're the great athletes that they are. And that's why they don't have to worry about their swings in a game. And that's why they do a lot better, right? I don't have to think about what I'm doing in every move I make when I step into the box. And that's super, super important to being a good hitter in the game.
Yeah, right. No, I love that. And it's so funny because I remember, and I know I'm using Charlie. I even use Matt Cross a lot. I'm going to use a lot of the pro guys, Tanner Kerwer and Greg Cullen from NU, who I see online all the time. And, even Connor Panis and Brett Siddle, guys that I played with. Like when you watch those guys get to pro baseball, it's amazing to see when they come back how much more they develop. Like I remember Matt Cross, who plays in the Oakland A's organization. He was drafted. He's from this area. Like when Matt was in high school, like I remember recruiting him. I remember going to the game and I'm like, man, this dude's going to be really good one day. Like, I think the swing is pretty good, but like, there's a lot that he could work on. Then he went to community college and like tore it up. And you're like, dude, click, something happened. Now he's in pro baseball and you're like, wait, you're still getting better. So we have to understand that like, it's just not going to happen today. Like it's going to happen over time. But I will say this, we can still be successful if our mechanics and our swing aren't perfect, if we learn to compete. Right. I think that's the big point behind that. So I do want to lead into some of the things that we're doing, like for hitting, let's say, like you and I have been working a lot, and Sam, who was on the last podcast, like we're working a lot on a lot of different stuff. Right. And we talked last time about how Sam is doing a lot of, online stuff to get an exercise library together and things like that. But like, we're trying to provide as much value to the kids as we can. Right. And we understand that we can't see them 7 days a week. I get that. And the one thing that I wanted to do better as the guy who kind of operates Hot Corner is how can I provide value to people whenever they're not here, right? And the one thing that I'm learning and that I've noticed is that I mostly see kids once, maybe twice a week. I'm really not seeing them that much. So we're in a process of trying to figure out a way to see them 2, 3, 4 times a week and make it more worth it for them to get in here. But we also want to figure out a way for them to do stuff at home based on what we do here, right? So we've come together, you and I and Sam, and we worked a lot on this, and we're going to continue to work on it. And this is part of the Dugout Coalition, but we're doing a drill platform, right? And we really don't want to do a lot like financially with it. Like we want to make it so that people can actually access everything that we're doing. But within the online drills, what are they getting with that? Like when we blast this out and people have access to it, like what are they getting? What's a part of it? You're the one that's been doing all the videos and everything like that, but what are they getting? What's a part of the whole online portal?
Right. So in the online portal, right now we're working on just a huge database of drills, with hitting, fielding, catching, pitching, strength and conditioning. And then with fielding, we have both infield and outfield. But the idea is that, we're going to overload people with just a bunch of different drills, right? Because what we notice is, like you said, to come into the facility once or twice a week, one, right, people don't have the time, which I understand. High school kids, they have school, they have other activities, they have their families, whatever, right? Plus it's also expensive. If you're working with a personal trainer 3, 4 times a week, and not a lot of people have, let's say, if they can afford it, should they, who knows? But people can't afford $200-300 a week, right, for personal lessons plus strength and conditioning on top. So the idea is this is a way for us to give players and even coaches this huge database of drills that we use day in and day out with our players, right, for obviously a lesser cost, and that it's theirs. They can have it, they can view it whenever they want, right? So let's say a kid does come in for a lesson, and I'm just going to throw a drill out there. Let's say we do a separation drill, right? Maybe the player loved it, did really good with it, and forgets, right? What exactly did we do? I think I'm doing it right, but I don't know. Well, here's my drill platform, right? There's a separation drill. Here's a breakdown of it. Now I can go home. I can work on that every single day and know that I'm doing it the right way, which is super, super important, right? And then I know there's a lot of players that don't have access to personal coaches. Or they're in a college that, let's say, I know for like Division III, there's a lot of rules on when you can practice with a team. So you might not be getting the coaching that you need individually with a certain person. So now here's a drill platform of everything that we do that's been proven to be a good resource. You have it. It's yours. You can use it, and then you can find what works for you. And I think that's what's most important is everybody has a different way of learning things, right? And everybody's gonna find what works for them best. So as a coach, I know sometimes we might have this flaw, and it's a flaw of being a one-on-one coach, is sometimes you want to pigeonhole somebody into something that doesn't work for them, right? Hey, this drill worked for me. I want you to do it. I think it'll work for you. Maybe it doesn't, right? They don't, for whatever reason, that player just doesn't click with whatever you're trying to teach them. So now they have an opportunity to go and do the research on their own, right? And try different things out and experiment. Okay, I'm going to try this drill this day, this drill that day. Well, I noticed that when I did, let's say, separation drill for a week straight, I was more, instead of going 1 for 3 with a line out, I went 2 for 3 and I hit a ball over the outfielder's head. Right. So now players are able to kind of experiment themselves and see what works for them. And I think that's super, super important, is finding out what works for you. Not what somebody tells you is going to work for you, but what actually is going to work for you based off of your own experiment, right, and your own trial and error.
Yeah, right. No, and I think that's good. And so basically within the drill portal, like what you're getting is you're going to get an introduction that basically says this is who we are. This is the drill that you're doing, and here's an explanation of what that drill is. Then you're going to get a visual of what the actual drill is. And the cool thing is we've got a ton of people who are like, man, like let's dive into this together. Like Charlie and Matt helped us with the drills and for catching and things like that. And Sam's obviously doing his exercise library and stuff like that. But then once you get into the actual drill, it's not just that we give you the video. Like we actually are voiceovering it so that we break it down and actually show you points on what you need to do and where you need to set up and things like that. So the goal behind it is to provide value for people who can't always be here. And so what we're learning, and you have helped me a lot with this, and so has Sam, is how can we give people more value because we only have so much space. So how can we continue to help people as much as we can without them always being here? And so the online portal is great. And then I do want to talk about, like, you have done so much with this, with the practice plans. Like, what are the practice plans? Mm-hmm. What's our goal behind them? What are we doing with it? Not only will the platform be accessible through Hot Corner's website, but it's also going to be accessible on the Dugout Coalition subscription portal. But like, after conversations or anything, like what are they getting with practice plans? What's the idea behind these practice plans? And for coaches, like, how is this going to help them if they already run an effective team, right? Like, how can we help them more than what they're already doing?
So there's a few ways, right? So, obviously there's different levels of coaching, and we hope to be able to reach all of those. So I think to start at the simplest level is, when you're talking about Little League, right, the younger ages, there's no possible way to get away from the coaches who don't really have any experience and their kids are on the team, just because there's so many young kids to play the game. There's just not enough coaches or well-rounded coaches out there. So the idea is if you're somebody new and for whatever reason you're stuck coaching your kid's team because, let's say, nobody else would do it, or you think you're the best option but you still don't have that much experience, you can go and find a practice plan that we've taken from our experiences playing, we've collaborated with many people on them to find practice plans that work, right? The simple template is you have your warm up, you have your prelims of either fielding or hitting or base running, whatever you're doing that day. You go into a focused work. So if you're hitting, it's focus T, focus BP, right? And that's usually some team culminating drill, right? It could be a way to bond the team. It could be a competition, right? But you kind of go step by step by step. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to just allow, I don't want to say lesser coaches, but the newer coaches who don't have as much experience, an opportunity to get an effective practice plan off the bat, right? Because if you run a structured practice, one, you can get a lot more done, and two, it's going to be a lot more effective, right? Which is super, super important, is making sure that, let's say you have an hour practice, right? You can do one thing for an entire hour and it not be really effective, or you can do 4 different things that are super focused for a period of time, right? And you can get a lot more done each day. And then as we move up, obviously we can get more complicated and we can put in some more details. But that's kind of just the outline of what we're going to do. But the ideal goal and what we're working on is that we're going to have on our website, both ours and Dugout Coalition, is you're going to be able to go in there and build a practice, right? You're going to be able to build whatever practice you want. So, it's basically going to say first drill or whatever you want to call it. You can go in there, you can pick warm up, right? Once you, let's say, pick warm up, it's going to give you here's different warm ups for what you're doing, right? And then you move on. So after the warm up, you can put in a time. Let's say it's 4 to 4:15, right? So you put in the time, you put in the drill you're going to do, right? And you put in, and it's going to give you a drop down of what's available for that. So let's say you go to 4:15 to 4:30. We're going to do hitting. So you input hitting, right? And it's going to give you all of our options for hitting. Do you want to do T work, right? And if you do, what drills do you want to do, right? Do you want to do front toss? What do you want to focus on? BP, what do you want to focus on, right? So you're able to go and build your own practice based off of your needs, right? Because based off of how you guys played that weekend or what kind of team you have, you're going to have different needs, right? So it's very, I guess, interchangeable, you could say, where you can input something different every single day if you wanted to, right? So, and I think that's super, super important because, like I said, every team's different. All the players are different. They struggle with different things at different times. So you have to be able to, exchange different things throughout different weeks. Now, let's say you ran a practice on Monday and it was great, right? Well, there's an option there where you can save that practice plan template and have it. So you don't have to build it again. It's there, which is super, super important because, a lot of times I know, we had a team, we would run a practice sometimes and it'd be great. And then we go 2, 3, 4 days and we'd be like, man, what do we do on Monday? Yep. What was so good about Monday's practice, right? We don't have to worry about it anymore. It's there for you. You can save it and you can have it and pull it up for however long you want it. And I think the last thing about this, which I think is really, really cool, is the option for coaches to be either private or public, right? And what that means is if you're public, when you put together a practice plan, and let's say you really, really like this practice plan, your team got a great workout in that day, you can post that so coaches across the country can see it. Anybody you're connected with is going to be able to see it, right? And vice versa. Another coach might have a great practice, post it, and you see it. Okay, so now you didn't have to build a great practice that you can take to your team, right, and use it day in and day out, which I think is great because now we're building a community of coaches who are there to help each other out, right? And that's super, super important because the ideal goal here is we want the players to become the best that they can be. And how do we do that? We run good practices, right? So I think that's kind of a little bit, little intro to what we're doing. Obviously, there's a lot that goes into it, but those are just some of the main points.
Yeah, and so I want to elaborate on one point. This is I was going to bring this up, but you did it last, which was great. I'm glad that you did. But understand this, like we live on the East Coast. Like it's currently snowing here in Buffalo. Like it's legitimately like I'm looking outside and it's snowing. And so when I talk to teams all the time, I try to explain to them, like, you guys just don't understand what they're doing in Florida, Texas, Georgia, California, Arizona. You just don't get it. And the reason why, it's just lack of knowledge. It's not their fault. It's just that they're not there.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They're just not there. And so like the cool thing about this is if you look at, okay, so let's say 9U team from San Francisco, California post their practice public, then a 9U team in Buffalo can see that, and they're looking at this practice and they're like, oh my gosh, like some of our 13U teams aren't even doing this stuff. Or hey, we're doing the same stuff as the 9U team that's in California. We're doing a good job. So the great thing about this is like you're going to be able to see what everybody else at your age is doing. This is going to grow the game of baseball so big because now you're looking at teams all over the country. And I know for us in Buffalo, like I believe that fundamentally we're behind because of the kids that I'm seeing at the certain ages that I'm seeing them and the things that I'm working out with them at certain ages. It's been 4 or 5 years in a row now that I've thought this, but it's just from working with people. But anyway, fundamentally, you'll be able to see when you're 12 years old that they're running a full practice in Tennessee and doing drills that you guys haven't done yet, or they're working on things that you guys aren't working on yet. For instance, I think that 10 and 11 and 12-year-old teams should be doing double play feeds at practice because I think that by the time you're 12 years old, you should be able to turn a double play, right? But I know that a lot of times in Tennessee and Florida, they're actually turning two consistently at 12 years old. Where up here, I believe that we settle for one out. I want all the coaches in the northern part of the country to see what the southern part is doing, and I want teams in the southern part of the country to see what we're doing. And I will give a benefit to the northern states because I feel like I've given a lot of credit to the west and the south. But like we're tougher up here. We are significantly tougher. Like, listen, man, I'm taking 95 off my back. Because there's a chance that when you throw the ball over the middle of the plate, I might fly out. So if you're going to throw it at me, dude, I'm just going to take it. Or I watch a lot of these other areas not do that. So like legitimately, like up here, we put a lot of hit by pitch stuff into practice. You know what I mean? And the reason why is because it's going to happen, right? Look at the professional level, like rookie ball. I talked to Charlie, I talked to Matt, like rookie ball, like dudes are throwing behind people consistently. Like they're not trying to, but it's 98 and it's behind you. And then the next 3 pitches are spotted up on the corners. You're going to get hit. But you need to be able to figure out how to. That's something that we do a really good job of in the North. And I will say this too, like northern states, we develop good pitchers, we develop good catchers because of the indoor. I think it makes it easier. But like that's why I like the idea of the practice plan system that's public, because now everybody can see what everybody else is doing. That adds a level, even though you might coach and play for a different team, it adds a little bit of camaraderie, right? And then the last thing that I want to get into with you is that you're technically your job initially started, and I think it's still there, but we're obviously with the quarantine, we've adjusted a lot of things. But camps and clinics, a lot of people run camps nationally. A lot of people do this kind of stuff. What's our network like? Who do we talk to? What's our camp system like? Why are we running it like that? Where are we going? Is it just a Northeast thing? Are we going national? Who have we talked to? What's our goals with these camps? And this will be kind of the last thing that we really touch on, but what are the goals with these camps?
Yeah, so one more thing, just going back to what we were talking about before I dive into the camps is, you look at these 10 to 12-year-old teams, and one thing to look at, and I'm glad we have the Little League World Series, is because now you can see how great players can be at that age group, right? So you see these kids hitting the ball 250 feet, right? And your best player can't hit the ball over the fence. Well, why, right? Is it because, that kid's more mature? Maybe. But they're running better, consistent practices day in and day out. So their players are getting significantly better at a faster rate than yours are, right? So the idea with the practice plans is let's build that foundation at a young age, right? Because like you said, in the Northeast, fundamentally, way behind, right? Way behind. Yep. I don't know of any team from Buffalo ever making it to the Little League World Series. Maybe there has been, but I don't know. Why? Right? Why? Because the fundamentals aren't being really taught until they're playing on the big field, right? But by then, some kids are stuck in their own ways. They're not going to change. So you have to build that base early. And that's kind of our goal is when we have these practice plans for the 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old kids, it's very fundamentally based, right? Because that's what's super, super important, right? A 10-year-old house ball doesn't matter how many games you win, right? It would be great to win the championship. I understand that. That's awesome. But how am I going to set these kids up for later in their playing careers once they get into high school and want to get into college, right? And that's what's really, really important. So now going into camps, right, obviously with the virus, it's pretty much come to a standstill because you can't have a camp of 100 kids, in the midst of all this. So basically, the outline of our camps is we like to do week-long camps in the summer, right, Monday through Friday, and we limit it to 3 hours a day, right? So we typically do 9 to noon in the Northeast because that's kind of the cooler time of the day, and we limit it to around 100 kids. So a few reasons why. During the summer, obviously, kids are still playing. They're in their house and travel ball seasons, right? So to have them come for an all-day camp, it's exhausting, right? It's exhausting for them to have to come to a camp and then go to a practice at 4 or 5 o'clock or play a game, right? So if you limit it to a couple hours in the morning, right, now you're 9 to noon. You do your check-in, so you get started around 9:15, 9:30. It gives them time to get their work in the morning, and then they can go home, relax, do whatever they want to do before they have a game or practice, which is very, very important. Why do we limit it to 100 kids? Well, because the idea behind the camps is to give as many possible kids the opportunity to, one, learn the fundamentals of the game, right? Because most of them are youth camps, so learn the fundamentals of the game, right? And have that, as personalized of coaching as we can get. By the end of the camp, we know everybody's names. Every coach knows every kid's name.
Yep.
Why? Because there's enough coaches there to handle all the kids. If you have 2 coaches and 150 kids, now you have a ratio of 75 kids to 1 coach. How are you going to get anything done? It's all generalized stuff, right? You're not getting the value that you could get out of it.
Right.
Okay, so we try to make sure we have enough coaches for the players. And as for, where they are, right now we have a lot of them in Buffalo just because that's where Hot Corner was started. That's where we have a big following. But we're working with a few other people that we know, connections that we know, and organizations to expand. So, through the Dial Coalition, we have Jake and we have Austin Byler. So one guy's handling kind of the Midwest. He's in Indiana. Another one is out in California, Arizona area. They also do some similar things, but the goal here is to try and, reach as many kids as possible, right? How can we get an outreach to the entire country, right? So we're making these connections, and we're going to hopefully start to work with them to hopefully get, Hot Corner out to California to do a youth camp, just so they kind of see this is a perspective from the Northeast, right? We might not bring to you fundamental stuff that new fundamental stuff, but what we're going to bring to you is a different attitude, right? And I think that goes a long way, longer than just fundamentals can go, right? Because if a kid out in California sees the way that we act when we're on the baseball field, and let's say, we're more hard-nosed, we have a chip on our shoulder, right? Kid out there might be like, dude, that's awesome. You're playing with a ton of fire, right? You don't care what happens. You're going to stick your nose in the ground if you have to. You're going to do what it takes, right? You could change a kid's perspective out there, make that kid a hard-nosed player. Who knows what will happen from there, right? Now, let's say we get Austin to come out to, Buffalo, right? So you have a California guy coming out to Buffalo. He might be way more advanced in, let's say, the way he coaches, the way he teaches, the way he trains, right? Super, super important. So kids in the Northeast, they see us, they see other coaches. We're all pretty similar, right? We do the same things. Now you have this guy coming from across the country, has a completely different outlook on how he teaches things, might resonate with some kids a little bit different, right? So the idea here is to get different perspectives and get a huge, huge outreach of what we're doing because we do a good job of it, right? So we want as many people to see that and try and understand what we're trying to do and benefit from it.
Right. Last person, I want to bring him up. Aaron Nielsen, Harmony Bat Company, Harmony Sports Company. What's he doing for us? What's he helping us with? I will say this, coach certifications are in process of being completed. We already got one of them done. We're just in the process of actually getting that out. All the coaches at our Hot Corner have already taken them. We've done a good job with those. But Aaron Nielsen, Canisius grad, runs Harmony Sports Company, Harmony Bat Company. What's he doing for you? What's he helping you with? What's the goals behind it? And this will be the last thing before we wrap up.
Well, I know he's helping you a lot as well.
Yep.
And we haven't talked too much recently just because, a lot's going on. So when it comes to setting up camps, it's right now. But he has a huge, huge network of reps he has all over the country. He even expands further than that. I know he has some, guys down in the Caribbean islands, things like that. But he Harmony Bats runs camps all over the place, right? They run camps all over the country, and I know he does a lot of it. And I think he wants to wean himself out of that, which is good for us because now that we're getting into camps, it's going to set up some opportunities for us to possibly grow and expand based off of that. So he's down in South Carolina. I know he wants to get us down there possibly. He mentioned something about Tampa Bay, Fort Worth, Texas. So, I mean, he has a huge network that he's going to connect us with, which I think is awesome because, for us, for the first couple months of the year, getting this thing started, it was tough, right? It really was. We kind of stuck to our bread and butter, Buffalo area. But with his network, it's going to be really, really helpful in getting us, outreach all over the country, which is going to be great because then not only do we get the Hawk Corner name out there, right? We get to take what we do and, our love of baseball, and we get to travel the country and do that, right? I think for me, it's awesome because, baseball to a lot of people, it's a sport, right? It's a hobby. But for us, it's what we do every single day, right? And when you really, really enjoy doing something, it makes it fun going to work every day. We're stuck in Pittsburgh and Buffalo. It's really not that nice here. It's snowing up in Buffalo. It's 50 degrees, 40 degrees out here. I'll go to Tampa Bay for a weekend.
Right.
You kidding me?
Right.
I'm not going to complain with that.
Right. And I think that's the cool thing about it is we're using our platform to actually be able to number one, like this is number one goal of Hot Corner, just so everybody knows, provide as much value to people as we can, not only as athletes, but as human beings. We can do that in a camp setting because it's more kids. I work with one person at a time most of the time. I'm going to work with 100 kids at a time whenever we do camps. It's value, right? It's value. How can we provide more of that? And then getting into different areas, like how cool would it be to go to South Carolina, Fort Worth, Texas, Tampa Bay, Washington State, California, Arizona, Indiana, and do stuff with people who have the exact same goals, dreams, visions for their careers as well. I think that's the big thing. I always say this, that when you surround yourself with people who have the same vision, that vision actually happens. It's kind of like getting more people to jump on the bus with you, if you will. And so we're getting there. And so understanding that, yes, like we're trying to bring this market of Buffalo and get a lot of camps in here and actually help the game of baseball around here. But we've got people all over the place that are interested. It's really cool to watch this whole thing transpire. As somebody who started with 25 kids and opening up a facility and things like that, but camps, clinics, online training, practice plans, hitting philosophy, cage versus game, like we really hit a lot of stuff today. Obviously there's going to be more of you with podcasts, there'll be more of you at Hot Corner. We are just cracking the surface of what we can do overall as an organization. And it's going to be it's a really fun ride so far. We're enjoying every single part of this and every step of the way. So I just want to thank you for jumping on here, spending an hour with me today. For all of you out there, you got a lot today. You got a lot of hitting, you got a lot of online portal stuff, you got a lot of practice plan camp stuff. But mostly we spent most of the time talking about hitting and hitting philosophy. So I just want to thank you guys for listening in this long. Nicholas, thank you for taking an hour out of your day to jump on here. This will be on YouTube. This will be on, you'll be able to see the video feed on YouTube. You'll be able to hear the podcast through all of our podcast networks. We got Apple Podcasts, we got Spotify, Google Podcasts, Anchor. Like we got a bunch of them now, which is really cool. But you'll be able to listen to those on there. If you guys have any questions, please reach out to Nicholas. Please reach out to me. We are here to help you. So if you have questions about hitting, like just email us, text us, call us, whatever. We'll spend the time to do it. We have the time right now to do it. But, obviously we've got stuff that we've got to finish and get to. So we're going to go and do that. But again, thank you so much for being on this and providing as much value to these kids as we can and these parents as we can. So on that note, I'll let you say your final remarks and we'll go from there.
Yeah. So, just to close up, just the whole goal behind what we're doing is, in everything, there's experts in their fields, right? And I know, especially from working in the facility, people come there, right? And they look at you as the expert in your field, right? But the thing is we're in the facility all the time, right? Or we're training individuals one-on-one. So how do you take all that knowledge and get it out to the world, right? How do you get it out to everybody? And that's why we're developing all these online platforms. And that's why we're doing camps, is so we can take the knowledge that we have and that we're learning and give it to everybody, right? there's no sense in holding on to that, right? How's it going to help the next generation of kids that want to play the game if we hold on to it? You know, throughout baseball and throughout any hobby you have, you're going to have mentors, you're going to have coaches who really help you out, some more than others, right? And what do? They give you better information, right? They give you the information that sticks, and that's all we're trying to do, right? Information is power. If you have it, you can use it and be one step ahead of your competition. And that's exactly what we're trying to do. So continue to be on the lookout for all the stuff that we have going on. Like we said, it's a whole process. We have us, we have Bam Fam, and we have Major League University helping out. So I know we set some deadlines. I don't know if you want to throw those out there, right? But we're hoping to have all the practice plans and all the videos and all the drill platforms done, I'll say in the next couple months. So whenever we do get that out, obviously stay tuned, and we'll blast that out, and hopefully it helps, right? Feedback is super, super important. So if you see something you love it, let us know. If you see something you don't love it, also let us know, right?
Yep.
Don't be mean about it. But we want to find out what works, right? So we can use that and we can help out as many people as possible.
Absolutely. Thanks again. Let us know if you guys need anything, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
Have a good one.
All right, take care.
Bye.